everybody have a good week?
Yep.
Great. I sent out a little bit of information this morning that we might want to discuss. Not in any particular order. We were intending on talking about Ukraine this week, and I have to tell you, I'm sorry for my voice, but I've had laryngitis now for more than a week. So I'll try to talk as loud as I can so you guys can hear what I'm saying. Anyway, we were going to start with Ukraine, but there is so much going on now with what happened on Sunday and then what happened in the Middle East the last 24 hours with the pagers. Don't know if you guys heard about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did. And I guess on that subject, they were all made in Hungary.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, they were licensed by a company in Taiwan, and they were made in Hungary.
The company in Taiwan denied anything to do with it. They just had their logo on the pagers.
Right. So, my understanding is each of the pagers, they somehow at some time along the way 20 milligrams of plastic explosive got put inside of them. Or 20, I'm guessing maybe 20 grams. What do you think? 20 milligrams, 20 grams?
I have no idea about that.
You haven't got a lot of room inside a pager.
No.
Yeah.
That stuff's potent, I'll tell you. You gotta be
And
careful.
they sold 5,000 of them.
Well, the 4,000 exploded.
Yeah. I heard 3,000 to 4,000. I heard there's some people in Syria and also in Iran that were using them. So
somebody did a great marketing job to get those to go just to the right people. So.
Yeah.
Well, they ordered, but Iran ordered them, and the Hezbollah said they wanted to get rid of their cell phones, so they ordered them especially so they wouldn't, they were afraid they were going to be tracked with their cell phones.
Yeah.
So they bought all these pagers. So they knew who bought them.
Yeah.
Or knew who got them, I guess, somehow.
There's a front page story in the Wall Street Journal today about that. And one of the interesting aspects is the fact that I'm assuming that the Israelis were behind it, that whoever set off the explosives only set it off on phones, or pagers rather, that there had been communication between Hezbollah on there. So they had somewhat of filtering what went through those phones so that only the ones that were in direct contact with Hezbollah were phones that exploded. You got to take your hat off to that.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, and they also I heard that they got wind that somebody with one of the pagers, or somehow someone was getting curious about them, and Israel was thinking that maybe they were going to take one of them over and open it up, and so they decided yesterday to send the signal, or however they did it.
Because they all went off at the same instant.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Did you guys see the Babylon Bees article that what's her name? Tlaib, the congressman, said she was not seriously injured when her pager flew up.
I didn't see that. Well, some people thought that would be the what happened right before Israel made an invasion.
Yeah, right.
But that did not happen. But I think it makes sense if they heard somebody was getting suspicious and was going to take one apart.
Yeah.
To go ahead and make it happen.
Oh yeah. You would think that would be something easy to find inside a pager.
Yeah.
Very interesting, and I take my hat off to Israel for something like that. I mean, these guys, like Dan Bongino says, these people are the murdering civilians and cutting the heads off babies. So I really don't have a lot of sympathy for him.
No, I just think it's a shame that our administration has not wholeheartedly supported them
Oh yeah,
and made it very clear to the American people on which side they lie.
yeah,
And it's because they aren't clear about
Right.
which side
Yeah.
they lie.
They're-
Because, nobody wants to kill civilians, but, in the long run, they're going to kill less civilians if they just get in there and get the job done.
That's right.
I think.
No,
I agree with you, Jeff. The longer it runs, the more people are going to die.
Yeah,
That's
and
just-
I'm sure the Israelis, the soldiers, the IDF feels that way too. They don't want to drag on and have to keep doing this. I mean, so yeah, it's here. It started October 7th, and now it's almost a year now.
But it really shows you how much power the mainstream media still has. Even with, the majority of Americans knowing they're untrustworthy, lie and mislead. I mean, you just go back any number, Hunter Biden laptop or, the COVID debacle, just on and on and on. But still, so many are steered by the mainstream media and believe.
Yeah.
Because I just have a hard time understanding why there hasn't been an outcry from the American public in support. I mean, there has been support for the Israelis, but not to the degree that I would have expected,
Yeah.
to be honest, from the
Yeah.
general public.
Well, I think a lot of that is the Jewish people's own fault, because so many of the Jewish people vote Democratic
In
Or
this
vote
country.
Democrat.
Yeah.
candidates, and if the leadership of the Jewish faith would come out in the United States and say, hey, we need to line up with the Republicans because the Democrats are not going to back us up. But they haven't done that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see November 5th if some of them change their minds.
I think some will.
Yeah. Don, I have a question.
Yes,
Since
sir.
you're in Florida, how does a man who doesn't have a whole lot of brains figure out when Donald Trump is going to be playing golf on that particular golf course, and where he can sit and pick off Donald Trump? How did he get that inside information?
That's what we're all trying to figure out. I think that's why DeSantis is going to have this investigation, because number one, they want to charge him with attempted murder, because the feds won't.
Sure.
The feds won't, because he's not a sitting government official.
Oh,
So
gosh.
the feds were only going to charge him with gun charges. So
Yeah.
DeSantis says, okay, well, we'll investigate and charge him with attempted murder, because they want him to go to jail the rest of his life. And
Well, obviously that's what it was.
yeah,
It's
but they're trying to find out. And I just think, I watched a video today with an ex-CIA guy, and he says this has all the earmarks of having the CIA involved with somebody that's been to Ukraine, somebody that took a $7,000 first-class seat and flew from Hawaii to North
exactly.
Carolina or Florida. He had a stolen license plate on his car. He didn't have a serial number on the gun. It has all the earmarks of something like that. So,
Well,
supposedly he had been laying in wait for about
12 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, they pinged his phone and it had been there 12 hours. So, yeah.
I read something this morning that said that particular spot is well known to the paparazzi, because they would use that spot to wait for celebrities that were playing the course to come by and take photographs of them. So the spot itself was well known to.
kind of well known, which goes against the conspiracy theory of there could be a mole, within this,
Yeah.
inner circle.
I think
Because-
it's
yeah.
interesting too, is I think Bongino's theory right now is, because of the threats from Iran and they are notorious for running these honeypot attempts, and you guys know what that is, right? That somebody involved with the Secret Service or somebody involved in that inner area that knew about this as a guy or a boyfriend or a girlfriend that they're spilling the beans to, and they don't realize who this person is. And because that was an unscheduled event. It was a place that Trump plays all the time, but nobody knew only 2 hours before that he was going to go there and play golf. So
I think that's the key. How did he know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I think though that is true, but in many conspiracy theories have been proven to be correct. But I would also deduce that if you know Trump's in the area and you know where there's a hole in the fence, not a literal hole, but a place you can go where the paparazzi,
and he plays
you
that
also
course.
know that he's prone to play golf when he's in town in that space. Yeah. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out if you wait there long enough, you might get a shot.
Yeah. I'm wondering how he didn't, how he kept from catching one of those rounds. Did the Secret Service agent, it wasn't clear to me, did the Secret Service agents actually shoot at him, or did he shoot in the air and scare him?
That's a good question.
They shot at the rifle 4 times. And I'm like you, Don. Why didn't they hit something important?
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember that the Secret Service has not been putting their number one team to support Trump. Like what happened in Butler was mostly Homeland Security, people wearing black suits.
Yeah.
They weren't top of the line, the sharpest pencils in the box, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But these guys, when you're shooting with a pistol at 60 yards, 70 yards, it's not, unless you really practice, it's hard to hit something as small as a rifle barrel or even a person behind bushes like that.
Yeah.
So I can understand why they didn't hit him, but
well, is that all he had, Paul? Is a pistol? The Secret Service?
I don't know. I don't know.
AK-47.
Usually when they're doing protective details like that, that's what they carry. Yeah. They don't carry long guns.
He had the shooter.
Had a long gun.
They said it was an SKS.
Yeah. Well, and that also, look, nothing. I'm not. Look, an SKS can do as much damage as anything else. If you're going to risk your own life to take out a president, I mean, honestly, there's better weapons to use.
Sure.
Okay. So.
Again, if you got the assets of the CIA to buy them, you should get the very best.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should have. You
have to get one without a serial number on
it.
He could have ordered one of those cheap Italian rifles like Oswald.
I'm sure the cartel's got a lot of those guns that what's his name? What was the Attorney General that gave the cartel all the guns?
Yeah.
Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
So they had a lot of guns to sell, not to mention the 700,000 weapons that the Taliban had. That they got when we left that place, and I'm sure they put a lot of them on the black market. So
they did. Yes, they sure did.
Oh yeah.
That wouldn't have been SKS.
Largest gun store in the world.
The only thing more disturbing about this second assassination Trump and the lack of, where could danger come from? And, and look, I hate to point fingers, but there's some issues there. The only thing worse than that is actually the way the media is treating it.
Oh, yeah.
And really the whole nation is just like, oh, well, it's Trump. Of course, there's going to be another. So, what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's
exactly. And not only that, Jeff, it's, if you watched the new temporary director or whatever he's called now, he was taking a victory lap, right? His whole system failed. His outer circle got breached. Luckily, the guy saw the rifle and fired, and the guy ran. But basically, their whole process broke down again.
It did.
Because the guy should have never been there to even try that, right? They should have swept that whole area long before Trump was even close to that area. So he's taking a victory lap and promoting people and giving people rewards. Bongino says he failed again. They failed again. And if they don't fix stuff, something's going to happen. So, it's not a good situation that we're at right now. And I saw a bunch of senators get up today and give them hell about it. So, more Republicans got to speak out on this. Not only about the Secret Service, but they've got to speak out about when these Democrats are going to shut their mouths and stop saying the stuff they're saying and getting these people all riled up, because that's what they're doing,
I was thinking, Don, that maybe one of the things that they ought to do is this Federal Election Commission ought to promulgate some type of rules that say all campaign ads have to be positive. You can't mention your opponent. You can't denigrate your opponent. You can only say, I'm me, here's what I'm going to do.
Right.
And if you start wandering off down that path, that he's a Hitler or he's going to kill democracy or your babies are going to die in heaven and, all that kind of stuff, then boom, you get shut off and you don't get to advertise anymore before the election. That'll stop that stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's something to think about, because that might be something that's coming down the road. Did you guys see that interview that Hillary gave on MSNBC?
No, but let me comment with Paul's thing real quick
ahead,
first, before we go there. I just think that's a slippery slope. We certainly don't want that happening. But I think what's more problematic, because then you get back into the Democrats and their coercion with the social media companies about what is truth and not, and then who gets to decide what you say or not. I think what's even more dangerous, but I agree, those saying those types of things
recording in progress,
somewhat responsible for what's happening. I've heard other pundits say, well, it's the only person to blame is the person who pulls the trigger. But I also believe that people who are stirring up this contention. But the thing that's most concerning to me is that we're okay with it. In other words, people believe it. I mean, when people say democracy's on the ballot and we'll never have another free and fair election if Trump gets, that kind of stuff, again, I think people should be able to say it as much as I hate it, but why is the public okay with it? And this
is not real bright.
No, and it's a false narrative. And as the book I'm writing is called False Narratives Kill, and it's almost gotten Trump killed because he is not the person that they are. Now, look, he's also not, Mother Teresa, but he's not Hitler either.
No. Yeah, it's a good question, Jeff, and I don't know. But you definitely have people out there that, we have some disturbed individuals that are on the streets of this country, and shouldn't be that way, but they are, and
we have some disturbed individuals that have mainstream media microphones.
Oh, yeah, that's true too.
You can't tell me, even though they're saying we're glad Trump's okay. Look, no, you can't tell me that a Whoopi Goldberg or some of these ladies on The View, with their vitriol and the commentary, that they inwardly wouldn't be celebrating. And that's sad. That's very sad. But I do believe that
it's true, because some of them a few of them went on Twitter the next day, including some politicians, some Democrat representatives, and virtually said that on Twitter.
And I don't think they understand what the reaction of some people in America would be.
Yeah.
It's if they want to light the fuse, that's a good way to do it.
No, you're right.
I'm going to go back to what you said, Jeff, about the slippery slope. If you've already been advised by the Supreme Court that no right is absolute, we can't yell in a crowded theater. And I have an issue with that. But so we've already established that if what you're going to do or say causes stress or disturbances or somebody's death, then that's not protected speech, right?
Yeah.
Well, technically, yeah, the calling fire in a building, that's a disputed thing because of some more recent Supreme Court decisions. And I don't know enough about it to get into the detail, but hate speech is protected.
Hate speech is one thing, but trying to get somebody eliminated.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, look, inciting a riot, or there are limits to saying like, hey, go kill that guy. There are limits there, but where do you want to place them? And who's going to be the judge of it? It's just, boy, to me, it's a difficult road to navigate.
Yeah,
but I'd rather err on the side of liberty, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Any legislation, they'd have to be very careful.
Yeah.
And certainly one side or the other would challenge whatever they came up with.
But I hear what you're saying. I mean, they're saying some vitriolic, in my point. So I hear you, Paul, and I don't know the answer, but my point is, regardless of what the decision is legally, morally, we have sunk to such a state that that's not only okay, but it seems to be encouraged.
Yeah, and I think, Jeff, one of the catch-22s we have is that the Democrats have sunk so low that many Republicans don't know how to respond to it.
Right.
And a lot of Republican voters, conservative people, are angry with our guys because they don't respond to it. But a lot of them are really reluctant to go there, right?
Well, look, that's why Trump's so popular to many, because he's willing to fight, and he'll get down in the mud and sling with the best of them.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Many conservatives have been taught in their Christian faiths, turn the other cheek, be kind, be tolerant, be loving. And the end we are not Machiavellian. The end does not justify the means. The means is the end. How we do things matters.
Yeah.
But that is not the case. Now, we have some on the right, of course, that do that. But, my perspective and perception is that's become the rule rather than the exception on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I could be wrong, but that's my perspective.
No, I think you're right.
Somehow we've got to learn how to fight against that.
No, you're right. I think it's widespread among the left. It's not only the media, it's in the media, it's in their politicians. It's with that gal that does the presidential briefings.
Yeah.
All of them. I mean, they're all, they get their talking points, and then they all go out and spread it, right? So.
Well, we need to educate the American people. I was on a Facebook thing. One of my old coaches said, look, he usually doesn't post and doesn't like to create contention, but this is really important. And he said, look, I'm voting for Trump, not because I like him so much, but the left is tending towards Marxism.
Yeah.
And then one of these guys said, oh, hey, that's not right. That's crazy talk and this. And I was like, look, just because we're not full-blown communists, the Kamala Harris has been out there saying she believes in equity. Yeah. What is that?
Yeah.
That's a Marxist theology.
Yeah, and price controls.
I mean, you can go on down the list. Mandated vaccine shutdowns without government. All those are Marxist leanings.
Yeah, when people say that that's going too far, it's because they don't understand what Marxism is.
Exactly.
Yeah, they know socialism and Marxism, they're not familiar with it. So they say, oh no, and they're thinking it's something different than what it really is. Yeah,
right.
I've heard people say, socialism's not so bad. Oh, really? Yeah, it's not so good either. So, yeah, it's a good conversation to have, and
socialism is just communism without the guns yet.
Without
may
the
not-
what?
The guns.
Go ahead, Paul.
That's it. I just said socialism is communism without the guns.
Yeah.
They haven't started killing us yet.
It's a soft tyranny. It's a soft tyranny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soft
But the point is, my point in bringing this up is the left always wants to say, no, we're not socialist or Marxist because this is how you define it. Forget how you define it. We're either heading towards tyranny or liberty. And which direction are we going?
Right.
Okay? So a Marxist theology is more government control, is more equity-based, is top-down edicts and mandates, is telling you that you have to have men and women sport, is dividing along racial lines, correct? Is dividing along, all these different policies and issues, taking more away from those who produce and giving it to those who don't. They're all Marxist. It's tending towards Marxism, if nothing else.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're exactly right. So I have a question for you guys in Arizona, since you're all citizens of the great state of Arizona. I heard this week that they found 100,000 registered illegal aliens on your voter list.
No,
Did you hear
that's
that?
not true.
Not true.
Yeah, that's not true. Bobby or Paul jump in, but what they did is anybody before 1996, when they got their driver's license, did not have to show proof of citizenship. So there's almost 100,000 residents of Arizona that have not had to show proof of citizenship,
Okay.
that have driver's license,
But that's all they know.
but they don't
85.
know they're illegals.
Yeah, they're 85,000.
Yeah, they don't. It's not saying there's almost 85 to 100,000 residents of Arizona that have not proven that they are citizens, because to get a driver's license pre-1996, and you remember how we used to give eternal driver's license.
Yeah.
Okay, they didn't have to do that. So there's some kind of a lawsuit going on right now saying that those people should be disenfranchised until they can prove citizenship, because Arizona has a state law saying you're supposed to be able to prove citizenship to
Right.
vote in state and local elections. It doesn't say that about federal.
Right. Yeah, the headline in Florida is what I said, that there are 100,000
Yeah, that's off.
illegal aliens registered in Arizona.
That's a bridge too far.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a stretch. There's possible that some of those are not American citizens, but probably most of them are.
Yeah.
Do you guys know, has anybody ever reported how many illegal aliens there are now in the state of Arizona?
I don't think anybody knows the answer to that, but I can tell you it's a lot.
Phoenix, and what is the status of Tucson? Are they still
Yes,
accepting
are.
people and then moving on up out to other places like Phoenix?
they're loading up all the budget motels and hotels with them. Yes,
But they're doing it stealthily is the
yes, they
problem.
are.
Yeah.
They're doing it very quietly.
Yeah.
And they stay there a while and process them, and then they move them out to somewhere else.
Yeah, it's really quite a game. I don't know if any of the media has really looked into it, but it's really kind of a game. I was in the Viscount motel or hotel on Broadway the other day, and which is one of probably the better hotels on Broadway in Tucson, and I kept noticing Black and Hispanic families walking through there with young children, and they never spoke to anybody, which made me think they couldn't speak English. And I asked one of the clerks there, I said, "What is the deal?" And he said, "Well, our whole second floor, I think it's a 3-story hotel, 3 or 4 stories." And he said their whole third floor of the building is reserved for, quote, homeless people. Well, I can tell you by looking at some of these folks, they're from Africa, they're from Central America, and very, very few, if any, can speak English.
Yeah.
So they're obviously illegal aliens or whatever they call themselves now that are being paid for by Pima County. And of course, Pima County gets reimbursed by the federal
By the
government.
feds, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't there a big hotel out by the airport that's also in on the scam?
I understand they're all over town.
Yeah.
You'd have to send out a search party to find them all. And the way they do it is they, a lot of times they don't take the whole building. They only take a certain part of it. And that way the general public doesn't really understand. I'm sure a lot of neighbors right there on Broadway don't know that one whole floor of a hotel in their neighborhood is reserved for illegal aliens, and because of the way they do it.
Yeah. Well, they're, like you said, they're very stealthy about it, right? Sneaky.
And
Yeah.
They're sneaky.
Well, and look, I'm as pro-immigrant, legal immigrant as you can get. I've been to the last couple weeks, in the federal courthouse with the judges where they swear in and take the oath. These legal immigrants that have been working for years to come in.
Recording stopped.
Quite frankly, it's a moving experience to see some of these new Americans go up and talk. Yeah. And I always make sure I talk in that, kind of give them my welcome and a little bit on the Declaration and what makes them fun people. Yeah. I think it's really important, but it is very moving. But just to be able to come in and not be part of the melting pot, not really understand what America's all about.
Right.
It's a problem because it's changing our culture. I don't care what country you come from, but if you adopt American values and ideals, hey, we want you here. But the problem is our cultures, ideals, values, principles they're being eroded because people don't know what they are.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I understand.
Jeff, do you know that in each one of those federal courthouses where they do the swearing in, on the first floor, just as you come or go out the entrance, there will be a voter registration booth.
Yes.
Set up.
But it's second floors. I don't know. I've never been to one on the first floor. You come in and go through and up the elevators.
Yeah. So there's the group that's there registering them as soon as they're sworn in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the judge, each time I've been in there, and it's been different judges, believe it or not, have told them, hey, you need to vote. This is what you do. And they get them right away. And look, and they have a right to do that. I really have no problem with that as long as they understand the second paragraph in the Declaration of Independence, that this is what makes us Americans, to believe in those.
The real industrious ones will figure it out right away too, as far as voting. Oh
yeah. And many of these legal immigrants, they've been here for years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It takes what 2 to 4 years to go through the process, doesn't it?
At least.
Yeah.
At least. There was one lady that was 10 years. I was in the wrong line last time I went in. I thought I was supposed to go to this line, and I'm in line with those being sworn in, and I'm like, this line isn't moving. Finally, I said, are you in line to go watch? She goes, no, I'm going to become a citizen today. I was like, I'm in the wrong line. And I talked to her and asked her, it'd been a 10-year journey for her.
Oh, yeah.
And she was from Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
And over and loved America. But she had been here for a while and kind of knows what's going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. That's great. Yeah. So, so we cleared up the 100,000 number, and you guys get any more updates on that? Let us know about it. What else did I want to talk about today?
How about
you get a little into Ukraine, I think.
Yeah, I want to bring up the Ukraine and why each one of you take the stage here, and why do you think the UK is so anxious to use long-range missiles into Russia? Why would they want to do that? I mean, the UK is not considered a big military power. Is it because they think they still are a big worldly power? I mean, are they having visions of grandeur? Are they just stupid and Tony Blinken is talking them into doing something that we won't do and he wants them to do it? I mean, I've watched several shows about this and I can't.
I can start this, Don, if you want me to. But from my point of view, when I think of Ukraine, I think of it as a gigantic washing machine. And the governments are putting a bunch of money in there, and then it flows out to wherever it needs to go, to whoever wants it. And when that war stops, a lot of that money is going to quit flowing. So somebody's trying to talk somebody into keeping the war going. And one way to do that is to have the UK or NATO launch missiles into Russia. Right now, Putin just said the other day that as far as he's concerned, the fact that these long-range missiles are being used from Ukraine into Russia is effectively a NATO attack, because while a Ukrainian may push the go button on the missile, there's this whole satellite system, because for them to be accurate, they have to have GPS guidance. And they don't, and the Ukrainians haven't had the training to program the missiles to do what they need to do.
Right. So
there's Westerners in there in Ukraine programming these missiles. A Ukrainian may be the one that pushes the button that makes it go, but there's a whole lot of backup from the Western world that's putting these rockets into Russia, and so my feeling is that the desire for peace is very small amongst those people who are benefiting from the continuation of the war.
Yeah, you know, is the pressure on Ukraine to? I mean, I know the pressure's on them. You know, this latest, what do they call that little area, the Kursk area? You guys heard about that, where they invaded a little bit of Russia?
Yeah, Kursk.
Yeah, Kursk
that's
area.
Where the greatest tank battle in World War II happened.
Yeah, that's right. And and that was kind of a plan that the Russians sucked in some of the best German outfits to go in there and destroyed a lot of them. So a lot of people think
6,000 tanks in that battle.
They thought,
I mean, that's a lot of tanks. I don't know if we have
tanks.
even close to that these
Well, if
days.
they got them all cleaned up yet.
Yeah.
So anyway, as of yesterday, most of that territory has been taken back by Russia, and there's only a little piece now that Ukraine controls. To do what they did, they had to weaken their whole eastern front. So since that thing started, Ukraine has lost a lot of ground along that whole eastern front, and Russia's picked up a lot of ground. And they're basically, I mean, Zelensky admitted the other day, and I saw him say this, and I don't know where he was talking, but he's always on somewhere talking something, asking for money or more weapons. But he said they were outnumbered. They're outgunned in artillery shells 12-1. So are they at the end of their rope and they're panicked and they're trying to talk one of the Western powers into doing this so that it'll bring NATO into the fight? Because nobody in NATO wants a piece of Russia. Germany said no, France said no, Italy said no. Now, for some reason, the Scandinavian countries are agreeing with the UK. Why, I have no idea, because they border Russia. You think they're out of their minds.
Don,
Go ahead, Bobby.
My opinion is that Britain has waited for the United States to take the lead. And obviously, Biden and his crew are completely lost. And I think England has decided, or Britain, whatever, has decided they have to take the lead in deciding what the Western countries are going to do in the Ukraine. And I think Britain feels like that the only way they can balance the scales in that part of the country, or that part of the world rather, is to furnish long-range missiles to Ukraine that, if nothing else, will make Russia hesitate to do any more long-term bombing of the vital spots in the Ukraine. And I think England sees what the United States refuses to see, is that Russia intends to bomb the Ukraine back to the Stone Age, and eventually they will have to surrender. And England is kind of taking up the slack because the United States is so inconsistent right now where they stand. And I think England feels like it's up to them now to lead the charge, that if they're going to save Ukraine at all, they're going to have to do something very major, very quickly. And about the only thing they can do is get some long-range missiles in there where they can strike deep into Russia. And I think Putin's biggest concern is that once the Russian people feel like they may wake up one day and be blown all to hell, that Putin may have a little problem with control. So I really think that's what it boils down to. Biden has been so out of the game, both in Israel and in the Ukraine, that no one knows where the United States stands on either subject. And I think England feels like they have to fill the void.
Yeah. Well, I think we should go back in history. And I know there's two sides of the story, but if we look at the Russian military, even back to Napoleon days, World War I, World War II, we find that they've never really been prepared for anything. And they start off very weak, even though they think they're strong, And you could go, from the invasion of Nazi Germany, all the way to their, on the defensive with the Russians, to their offensive into Finland. And of course, we know 50,000 Finns casualties took out about 500,000 Russians. But the problem is, like with Romney and other senators, their goal is to degrade Russia's ability to wage war. History tells us that longer wars do not degrade Russia's military to wage war.
Right.
Okay. So now there's a demographic factor that argues against what I'm saying because of their birth rate and these kind of things. However, the Russians are very resilient. They've shown they're very resilient, and they do get better with experience. I really believe the worst thing we could be doing is giving them experience, knowledge, and know-how on how to fight a war on a first world level, as opposed to where they were 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Not being able to hardly fight Ukraine, which is a much subpar military outfit. And if we would have kept them there, that would have been the best degradation we could have had. Okay, so having said that, they've probably hit the bottom end of their curve of degrading their military. And now they're starting to learn, and they will get better. And so we have missed opportunities to be able to make peace with Russia. The Finns gave up almost 10% of their land and had peace with Russia. And it was so damaging to the Russian military that they said, we don't want to go back to war with you guys, okay? But they were also able to save face, Stalin was, by saying we got a victory because we got 10% of their land and we, fought and did it. I'm neither on the one side of saying we need to pull out and make peace now at any cost and letting Ukraine get tackled, and I'm certainly not on the side of we got to continue this forever. I'm one who thinks you strike down the middle, let Russia save face. They're going to keep Crimea, the Donbass region. It goes back to pre-2022 borders, and Ukraine can say we fought off the bad guys, and everybody goes home a little bit upset, but also able to hold their pride. If we don't find a way to do that, this thing is going to escalate out of control. Russia's going to get better, not worse, and we're going to lose Ukraine. And so we got to, and I just can't, it is hard to believe that our politicians don't have historians talking to them about this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, or really understand the region.
Just look at what happened in Vietnam. Talk about historians. Everybody was out to lunch.
Oh yeah. Well, we never seem to learn. It's a great book written by B. H. Liddell Hart about why we don't learn from history. And it's because our leadership class is ill prepared to lead. Winston Churchill was one of the few who really understood history as a student and a writer of it. And we just don't have the leaders prepared. They're just not.
You're right.
Either with leadership traits or their knowledge of history and understanding of, and I'm not saying I do, but and I'm not a historian, but I teach a lot. And this is something that our political leaders should know, and they should have advisors on this. But we are handling this war. I just don't think we're handling it very well at all. While we're sitting there in Israel trying to get them to compromise and pull back, we should be pushing. And in Russia, where we should be compromising, we are pushing.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me.
Yeah. Well, I heard the other day, I think we gave Ukraine 31 Abrams tanks, and I think they've destroyed 20 of them. So your point about one of the things we've done is we've given Russia a lot of information about many of our best weapon systems.
You betcha.
And that's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing.
And they're taking them, the ones that are still they're still in one piece. They take them back to Moscow and they display them all. All these NATO weapons and American weapons. But they study them, take them apart, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about your point about the historians. I think we have historians. We have people who have really studied the history of the United States, the war, the Europe, the whole thing. But we've seen in actual practice that there are agendas that our politicians want to accomplish, regardless of the good information they might get telling them how to do this. If it goes against the agenda, they're not going to follow.
Right.
And I think that's the problem.
And that's a good point, Paul. Their priorities are not peace or stability of the Western world. It's for either political power or selfish endeavors. And that's a good point. So they don't care.
Yeah. And your point about Russia, Jeff, isn't that something that would be taught in a war college?
It should be.
I mean, you'd think that would be you'd think that would be a top subject there, right?
Well, what happened when Napoleon invaded? Yeah. When they figured it out.
Yeah.
They took a major beating at first, didn't they?
Yeah.
But they figured it out.
Well, they took a major beating from the Nazis too until they got to Leningrad, and then it all turned around.
Right. Well, even Tsarist Russia, they did have peace in World War I.
Yeah.
And so there's ways to get there. And the problem is, the czars were then thrown out in large degree because of their failures. So we've got to be able to thread that needle somehow. And, we found even in Iraq with regime change, it's not always the best thing, even if the guy is a bad guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Iraq was a huge mistake. And we took away Iran's number one enemy.
Yeah, that was stupid.
Because Iraq and Iran were always fighting each other. So Iraq kept Iran busy with their border, so they couldn't mess around with anybody else. That was a huge mistake.
Really huge mistake.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons the Bushes hate. They hate President Trump and all his minions, because the Bush's minions, because the Cheneys, all those people, because Trump said Iraq was a big mistake.
Yeah, no, but back in those days, look, I was pro going into Afghanistan and I was pro going into Iraq at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But with hindsight, we have to learn,
Yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
or the sacrifices aren't worth it.
Yeah. I was certainly pro going to Afghanistan because we were going after bin Laden, but then that turned into a
Yeah.
20-year debacle because the generals didn't go in there to win, and they didn't, and our leadership didn't give them a goal. You know, here's what we want you to do, right?
Well, with hindsight, Afghanistan, we should have gone and we probably should still be there. In Iraq, we shouldn't have gone and we shouldn't still be there.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think a good strategy in Afghanistan would have been to go in, kill bin Laden. You know, that was the reason we went there. Wipe out Al Qaeda like we did ISIS in Libya, and then get out.
Yeah.
Because
Well, he wasn't in Afghanistan anyway. He was in Pakistan.
yeah, well, yeah, he was hiding in Pakistan. Yeah, eventually he moved over there, but originally he was up there in those. What do they call that?
Was the Hindu Kush
Yeah, yeah.
whole area.
But he was up there in Afghanistan in that cave area,
Yeah.
and they had a chance to get him. That's where they should have put their all-out effort before he moved to Pakistan. You know, and you remember, you guys you saw the movie Zero Dark 30, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Well, you remember when she kept writing on the guy's glass window how many days it had been for them to make a decision to go after bin Laden in Pakistan, right? Remember, she wrote 25, and then she wrote 75, then it was up over 100. I mean, that's what we got going on now with everything, right? It's hard for these people to make the hard decisions, and so in the meantime, they get a lot of people killed and injured and maimed, and with no progress in anything they do. I mean, do our politicians can they imagine? You know how many people they've got killed in Ukraine since 2022?
I can't. It's horrendous.
I mean, yeah, it's just terrible.
Million.
Yeah, and
Well,
they-
Ukraine has lost a quarter of its population.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I heard too, Jeff. So
I
yeah,
mean,
that's
And the average fighting age of a Ukrainian soldier, I heard, was 40.
yeah, I heard that too. Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
that's why they drive around on the street trying to grab guys to take into the military, you know. Because
That's why they had to put restrictions on outbound travel when this war first started. They were stopping young military age men on the trains as they were leaving Kiev and headed for somewhere else.
yeah,
They didn't have Canada,
yeah.
so they had to go somewhere else.
I guess they had to go to Poland, right?
I guess so.
Yeah.
In order to get out of the reach of the.
I mean, if you go north, you go to Russia, right? Because it's kind of Ukraine's kind of in the southwest corner of Russia, right? So if
Yeah.
you go north, so they had to go east, or they had to go west of Poland. Now, I don't know what's south of Ukraine. What's south of Ukraine? Anybody know?
Well, you start, no, not off the top of my head, but you start getting into the Middle East down there.
Yeah, I was going to say you probably get into some Middle Eastern countries, right?
Yeah, that's something I'll
I
have
don't
to.
know. Yeah, but anyway. So, okay, guys. Well, anything else you want to bring up going on in your area that you'd like to tell the audience about?
And we'll stay on top of that voter registration issue you brought up.
Okay, Bobby. Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I'm curious about that. We're trying to find out here. I don't know if you guys knew it, but if you're a American citizen overseas and you're non-military, there's a special voter registration form you have to fill out.
Huh.
And of course you have to be an American citizen to do that. And
Right.
they're wondering when those registrations come into the different states how they're being treated, and that the states are actually verifying that these people are citizens. There's a big controversy about that. Some states don't even look at it. They turn the other day to say, yeah, they're a citizen, and send them a ballot. Some states investigate to verify that they are citizens of this country. So
Okay, so correction here, guys. This shows our ignorance of geography, and we should have known this, but to the south is Moldova and Romania. But of course,
okay.
to the direct south is the Black Sea, because
Yeah.
that's where the Crimea is.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
embarrassed about that.
So Romania and Moldova.
Yeah, and then Bulgaria, and then we get further south to Greece and going into Turkey. So we're
Right.
quite a ways from the Middle East.
So Romania and Moldova are they both in NATO? I think Romania is.
Romania, I believe, is. I don't know about Moldova,
Yeah, I
but
don't
I
either.
wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Okay. So they're
Yeah,
landlocked.
it's the Balkans. I mean, it's the Balkan states.
Yeah. Other than the Black Sea, they're landlocked on all sides. Yeah.
Don,
Right.
I just got word from Eileen that she sent to your wife information concerning that voter registration issue. The chairman of the Republican Party in Arizona, Shibota, has filed a suit against the Office of Voter Registration to get to the bottom of that. And so your wife should have probably more information than all of us put together right now.
All right. Good job, Eileen. So I need to check with Patty about that.
Yeah, check
All
with
right.
Patty.
Okay. So we'll talk about it next show. So anything else, guys?
That's good for the week.
How's your weather been? Hot?
Still
It's
hot.
Yeah.
It's cooling down a little bit.
Yeah, it
It's
is
up
cooling
to
down a
90.
little bit. Yeah.
About 90 degrees.
We had
Yeah.
in 10 days' time, we had about 16 inches of rain.
Oh,
Yeah, we got a lot of rain. We got a lot of water in our ponds right now. So it's funny. Every rainstorm, they turn on all the sprinklers because the ponds are full. So they have to try to get some of the water out of the ponds. So,
wow.
but right now we've had a couple of dry days, and it's 89, 88, 89. So it's pretty nice. So, and now they're talking about a hurricane forming in the Gulf of Mexico by the 25th of September and coming up through the Gulf to either, Texas, Louisiana, or even over to the Florida area. So we'll see if that happens. or
That's
not.
when you miss Arizona, don't you, Don?
Yeah, no, we don't like the hurricanes.
We send all our blue tarps over to Florida about this time of year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll bet. We see a lot of them. So, okay, guys, God bless you guys. Thanks
All
for
my
coming on
best.
this week. Everybody going to be available next week, as far as you know?
As far as we
I
know.
believe so. Yeah.
Okay. If you got anything you want to talk about, send me an email and
Sounds good.
I'll keep communicating with you guys. Thanks so much. Thanks to our audience. Everybody subscribe and hit the little bell to get notified when we put a new show up. This show should be up by Friday for your guys' information. And
Awesome.
so God bless everybody and take care of yourselves and your families. Be safe.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Don.
All right.
You guys.